Welcome back. We are going to be beginning with black today. Let's look at our learning intentions for today. Okay, we are going to try and draw and fill in using black paint. But let's remind ourselves how we got here. First of all, I just doodled a drawing, and then when I was happy with it, I put graphite on the back of this paper, taped it to the board, and drew through it like a carbon paper using an embossing tool, and the lines were transferred. Then we used a stain of burnt umber, raw umber and olive green, diluted heavily with water here and with thinner here, just to show that there isn't really much difference between staining a canvas. We discovered that staining on top of the drawing didn't move the graphite, didn't affect it badly in any way. So we've got options. We can stain the canvas and then draw on top, or we can draw on top of the canvas board and then stain on top, knowing that we won't affect the drawing in any way. Let's look at our success criteria for today. Okay, we are going to try mix a black. Blacks are available, and I don't have a problem with them, with using black straight out of a tube. But we are going to mix our black using French Ultramarine blue and either or both of the browns that we used the other day, which were Burnt Umber and Raw Sienna. Now, just give me a moment while I turn the camera around. There we are. That's the way it should be. And within a second. That's better. Okay. There we go. Raw umber, burnt umber. So raw umber is a bit cooler, burnt umber is a bit warmer, and French ultramarine blue. We can use those to mix a black. Then we're going to be using a rigger brush. I've got Rosemary and Co. Sable Blend 2 and 1. This is their series 771, and I quite like them. This is not sponsored, these are just the ones that I use at the moment. And we're going to be using water, just ordinary tap water. So if we scoot across to the demo class, you'll be able to see everything that I'm doing. Okay, there. So just a little bit of water into the blue. Then bring in some brown. There we go. this brown is using up the old material which was put out on yesterday's class, yesterday's studio session. There we go. And I think we're ready. So we've got the cool of the Raw Umber and the cool of the French Ultramarine blue. Just mixed up with water. It seems to be that if we use water only, it dries more quickly than if we use thinner. And the thinner is very useful because it leaves the working time open a little bit longer. But as I'm mixing with water, there is colour shift between when it goes on wet and when it dries. There is a little bit of a colour shift. There is a less likelihood of colour shift by using the artisan thinner, this here. But at these early stages, since tap water is cheaper, why not do that? And if we're going to get speedier results, it's going to be ready for tomorrow morning, why not do it that way? Okay. So first of all, I'm going to go with the pupil. There. I'm hoping that by going in with my blacks, I can see the drawing, see the portions separated out, because I have to admit that some of the image is a little bit tricky to see. Okay. There I just dipped the brush straight into water because I wanted just to thin this out. It's not flowing quite the way that I want it to. Especially around the tricky area of the beak. Back into the paint. There. Now there's a lovely kind of syrupy feel about the paint. It's flowing just nicely. Normally when I paint I just do what I want to do, but actually recording these live streams is encouraging me to be more conscious of my working methods. But really today I just want to enjoy the sensation of painting. Is therapeutic for me. There. Okay, so the rigger brush has a very nice fine point. I want it to appear that the chessboard disappears into here, into this area here. So I'm going to leave that as it is. There's a piece that I want to correct from the drawing there. So as I approached the line, I just pressed a little bit further down, a little bit more firmly down on the brush to approach that line. Now I'm seeing that there's excess here that I'm going to pick up and transfer over to the other side of the beak. There we go. And since I'm trying to be more precise here, I'm pressing a lot more lightly. Okay. Now you can start anywhere at all, but I chose this bit here because this is the bit that frames the beak, and the beak for me is one of the most important areas in this circle. And it's correcting a little bit. It's where the highlight on the eye meets the chin of the bird. Okay, I'm happy with that. And there's a tiny little fragment there on the highlight of the eye, on the pupil, where it meets the crown of the hummingbird there. So, there we go. That's a good start. By painting this form here, the shape of the beak has become more evident. There's a little detail that I added over here. This is a guitar waterfall. So that a waterfall is going to be dropping out of the sound hole of this guitar here. And it cascade down, so I might as well put that in. Okay, and then the eye of the hummingbird. By planning ahead, I can just remember to leave a highlight, an area for a highlight. But here I want to remind myself that there is a brow ridge. So again, drawing with a brush. There we go. Put a little shade over the eyebrow. There. Okay, we have a lot of eyelashes to do. So pick up more paint and twist the brush around in the paint, which is a kind of inky consistency. That's what I'm aiming for. So, okay. Pressing the firmest, and then as the line thins out, I'm releasing the pressure a little. Okay. I think one of the reasons why I draw with blacks is it reinstates the drawing, but also it helps me get into a painting mood. Okay, there's a little highlight on an eyelash. Pressing more firmly, but as the brush stroke moves away, I'm releasing the pressure. Back in again more firmly. Round off the root of that hair. Back up. A little bit more water to get the inkiness that I'm looking for. There. Just a touch. It's therapeutic because with ME, which is my condition, there's a lot of muscle tension and stiffness. And so by doing these drawings, I overcome the inertia in my muscles. And the act of doing it, the act of making these, just helps free up the muscles, I suppose. Now what I'm doing is, to get control, is I'm holding the brush quite firmly near the ferrule, the metal portion of the brush, and I'm actually moving my whole hand away, rather than controlling it from the fingertips like this. But I'm just learning, so I've learned that this works for me, and there seems to be more control. It kind of reduces the amount of handshake as in the act of drawing with a rigger. Pressing more firmly. And then releasing the pressure as we go up to the tip. Back down to the base, pressing. And then slowly releasing as the hand goes up. It's just occurred to me that these look like the toenails of bird claws. So because this is a unconscious drawing, a lot of the images are sort of ambiguous, and some things can appear like other things. Make sure the brush is loaded up. So okay. I can feel the paint is becoming a little less inky. There. Now we don't see the root of this particular eyelash, because it's partially occluded. by the top of the bird's skull. I'm trying to do these in a single stroke, but it's not always working. And narrating at the same time is difficult, but it's not much of a visual not much of a spectacle to watch a video of someone's studio practice and they're not narrating. Okay, this one again, that defines the crown of the hummingbird. I'm going to press more firmly, and then as I travel up and away, the pressure decreases of the brush tip. Now, I'm not a big fan. Normally I work on paper. I prefer a smooth surface, but I had these canvas boards lying about and I decided to try them. And they're nice, I'm enjoying them, but the texture of them, sometimes there's imperfections on them. And just when you think you're getting the line just right, you'll hit a little decal or a little bump on the canvas surface and the paint will just run off in a slightly different direction. And so I'm thinking of returning to these, doing more of them because I'm learning to enjoy them. This one's slightly different. This one's coming this way, so I'd rather just approach them from this angle. Being a right-hander, just press firmly, and then as the hand sort of moves away, the tip of the brush naturally lifts away from the surface and that controls the line. Okay. The other thing about my condition, my ME condition, is concentration. So I can't really concentrate for too long before it becomes affected. But I do notice that when I'm doing something relaxing like this, I can concentrate longer. But then there is something repetitive about it that is quotidian. Just routine, mundane, and yet there's something relaxing about the act of drawing with a paintbrush. So for me, I just think that making the line move away from you is slightly easier to control. That's fine. I've got the pupil here, the large pupil. I've got the eyelashes in. I've got the sound hole over here for the waterfall, the sound hole waterfall. I've got the eye of the hummingbird, but I feel that needs to be closed up a little now, looking at it. And of course, there's this little baby hummingbird down here, or it may be the other parent hummingbird. So I've got my hand firmly planted on the surface. I'm just trying to move the line and pressing down and then just releasing as you travel. But this one's slightly more tricky. Okay. There. So this skill will be, necessary for doing the beaks, which are one of the challenges of the hummingbird. But for me, one of the joys of doing them is when the beak travels away into these kind of thin connecting lines which seem to appear for some reason in the painting. So that's the skill that's needed to control that line. But yeah, quite happy with that. The other dark space that I want to make sure is established early on is on the guitar tuning peg up here. There are gaps between the rollers, 1, 2, 3 rollers, and the background. Now you should be able to see through the gap to the thing that's in the background, which in this case is a mixing palette, a paint palette. But what I'm going to do is just block them in black. It's my prerogative. So again, trying to press and then release the pressure as we move away, like so. Okay. You can also take the opportunity to correct the drawing if the drawing's not right. Now's the chance to improve it. Okay. Now changing the angle for my own convenience. The angle of approach this way. But the thing about these paints are, oil paints, as you go along, if you make any mistakes, you can always just paint over and correct that way. There we go. That's okay. The hummingbird's toes are black, so again I should maybe paint away from myself. A little bit more firmly to start off with, and then releasing the pressure as we go. 1, 2, I find the staining being a little bit irregular has affected the legibility of some of the tiny details, but by getting up close to them as I'm doing right now, I can't see them. but I'm keen to re-establish these fine details as quickly as possible. So black will help me. Okay. And that's fine. It's not intended that these guitar stepping stones, yeah, that paint there is beginning to become a little bit tacky. So it is drying out, even in the course of me doing this little bit of work. It's begun to dry out a little, become a little bit tacky on the surface. So since these are, a sable blend, I prefer a kind of wetter inky mix when I'm at this kind of drawing stage. So here we've got the stepping stones, which are trying to, indicate A minor. So A minor, E major chord shape stepping stones. Don't know why. It's just what they are. There. And once it's outlined, fill in the gap. Now with this, because this is water, these should be, horizontal. These stepping stones in this particular pond. But if they're not ideal, we can always correct them later. So stepping stone number 2. Anybody who plays guitar will recognize the dots on a chord box, but these have been obscured, occluded by the water. Okay. I just want to know that they have been, established in the painting. So what I did there was, I saw that there was excess, and I just mopped it up and transferred it to this portion here. Okay. I'm happy with that so far. That's okay. So with these other ones, these earlier ones, I did the drawing in blue. Just straight in, and then place the colours on top. But I've got some correcting to do since I'm using black today. So the eye of this hummingbird is far too small. So I'm going to increase it. I'd rather have it larger than too small. And there's a bit of the sound hole there, which I feel could be a little bit more towards the brown. So I'm going to bring in a little bit more umber in there. Now this is a number 2, so I'm going to go slightly smaller with this number 1 in the colour. Make sure it's nice and inky so it flows quite well. A few trial marks. There we go. And again, a similar idea as before, trying not to move the fingers so much as to move the hand. It's sometimes unavoidable. There, I'm outlining and then trying to fill in the outline. So it's the outline that's tricky, and then going in with the, filling in the outline that you've made, staying within the contours. And that's very tricky. So there are even smaller paintbrushes than the ones that I'm using for even more fine detail. But these ones are perfectly adequate for the size that I'm working on. And this one here is 6 by 8. That's okay. I'll darken the part of the little tadpoles. There are tadpoles in these water droplets, which appear as tears. That's fine. And then by layering, I hope to get a dark sheen where the bout or the waist of the guitar, as it comes up from the bout here, which is the bulge. Yeah, so that waist there is hopefully darkened. And again here. If I was painting these much larger, I would like to get the pattern of the wood that's used in these guitars done more expressively. I think that would be quite nice. But that's okay. On this one, nope, the pupil's okay. But I did want a little darkening under here, going up to a bulge, then here. That's going to strengthen that black and give a little hood under the pupil there. A little bit of shadow. Okay. And again with this hummingbird here, A little bit of depth to the colour. That's okay. Now, after I switch off, I'm just going to spend a bit more time putting in the checked pattern of the chessboard and trying to establish the frets, the individual frets on the guitar here. And that'll be me for this session. So thank you for joining me on another workshop day. Let's revise and see what we've learned. So if we go back to the start, we are beginning our painting with black. Let's revise our learning intentions. So draw and fill with black paint. Yep. So we saw how to make an inky mix, and to control the line by moving the hand rather than the fingers. Try to move the whole hand, and I was working in a way where I press firmly and then release the pressure as I was painting away from myself, particularly on these eyelashes. The black paint that we used was not straight out of a tube, although there's no problems with that. There shouldn't be any issues with that. There we go. This one here, mix of black. We mixed ours using two of the browns. We had Burnt Umber and Raw Umber mixed with French Ultramarine blue. So that gives a fairly decent approximation of black. There is no reason why not to use carbon or ivory black or any of these from a tube, but they do have different qualities to them. We used a rigger brush, which are these kind. They're often called script liners as well, and we practice controlling pressure, and hopefully by doing so we also had a relaxing and enjoyable time doing it. So thank you so much for joining me on this particular installment. And we're now going to end the stream. Thank you so much for joining me. I hope to meet up with you again soon for another session together.